This is a video based on the study guide for the new pre-algebra test this week, and the pre-algebra test consists of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, all, plus, minus, multiply, divide of decimals and fractions, right? And it usually only involves one or two steps. So that's what we're going to take a look at here. And this all comes from the two handouts that you guys had, skills practice on page 47 and page 48, but you'll probably have a study guide handout to do it with. And the first thing that I look at, well, we're going to look at this problem right here. The first thing that I look at is where's the variable? So I say, okay, here's the variable x. And how is it connected to anything? Is it being multiplied or divided or added or subtracted? And in this case, it's being connected to a number by an addition symbol, right? So in order to break that connection, what I need to do is the opposite. I need to do the inverse. In this case, the inverse of adding is subtracting. And how much am I adding to it? 2.62. So that's the same amount that I'm going to subtract from it. So that'll be great because that'll leave me with just x after I do that. Now, I've only done that to one side of the equation, so I have to do it to the other side of the equation as well. I can't just do it to one side of the equation. That would not make this equal sign would not be true if I only did it to one side, and that is very important. So, okay, so let's just do this. 7 minus 2 is 5. 3 minus 6 can't do. Got to borrow 5. Make that a 13, right? Put it over there. 13 minus 6 is 7, and this is something you might not be used to. If you subtract decimals, you can just shoot the decimal down, right? You're trying to line everything up when you're subtracting numbers with decimals. 5 minus 2 is 3, so that right there is my answer, and that's okay. These guys are going to cancel out, and I'm just going to be left with x. So x is going to equal this number, 3.75. Now, how can you check that? Well, I can take that 3.75 and put it in place of my x here. So I could go 3.75 and I can add it to the 2.62. And if that equals the number I'm looking for, 6.37, then I have done my job and that will be correct. So I'll leave that for you to check. Okay, next one. Alright, we'll take a look at a fractional problem here. Okay, so I have negative 4/5 plus z equals 1/10. Alright, well, if I had, let's replace those fractions with numbers that I know better. Let's just use the top number. So if I had negative 4 plus z equals 1, let's just say. I took out the bottom numbers because I'm just using this as an example right here, okay? So if I had that, well, one thing that's important to know that is if you have a negative number and you add a positive number, that's the same thing as this. If I had z minus 4, z minus 4 is the same thing as negative 4 plus z. This is a property called the commutative property. You're allowed to put your positives in front if you do so prefer, right? This is really a plus z. So that's what I'm going to do over here. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, okay, well, this is the same thing as z minus 4/5, and that's equal to 1/10, just like it says. These two equations are the exact same thing. I haven't changed anything at all, right? Only the order. So now the next thing I notice is say, okay, well, when I add or subtract fractions, what I have to make sure of is that their denominators are the same, right? When you add or subtract fractions, let me go like this. Add or subtract fractions. The key thing to notice is the denominator, right? And what we call that is they need a common denominator, right? So how do I compare those? Well, 5 I know goes into 10. If I know my multiples of 5, I know my factors of 10. So what I can do is that means that I can change 4/5 into some kind of tenths. And how many tenths? Well, 5 times what is 10? And that's what I've got to do to the 4. So 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 2 will give me the number I'm looking for over here. It's 8. So now my 4/5 just became 8/10. So the new equation is z minus 8/10, not 4/5, equals 1/10. And what is this? What minus 8 equals 1? Okay, 9 minus 8 equals 1. So z must be 9/10. Another way to do that is to add 8/10 to both sides. And 1/10 plus 8/10 is still 9/10.